Welcome to Real Estate Investing for Women. On this show, you will learn how to create wealth through real estate the blissful way. That means with very little stress and very little time. We talk about strategies, mindset, heart set, money smarts, resources, and so much more to ensure you're able to create the success you most deeply desire. Now, here's your host, Monica Sawyer.
Today, I am so excited to introduce you ladies to Jen Lee. Jen is a debt and credit attorney and owner of Jen Lee Law, Inc., law firm with offices in San Francisco, San Ramon, and Tracy, California. She's in my neighborhood. I love that. She is a leading expert on debt, credit, and financial stress, having been featured in Consumer Affairs, U.S. News and World Report, and other national publications. Jen is a creator of several innovative programs to deal with financial stress and rebuilding after financial disaster. Jen is the co-author of Preventing Credit Card Fraud, a complete guide for everyone from merchants to consumers, published by Roman and Littlefield in March 2017. Hello there, Jen. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Monica. Thank you for having me. This is great. I'm so happy to be here.
I'm so excited about this conversation. And ladies, you have to go to Roku or YouTube and check out Jen's backdrop. It's so cute. She's got her little elephant, Bernadette, sitting there with her, making me smile. So we're going to hear more about Bernadette in a minute, but you have to go check it out. So go check it out on YouTube, Real Estate Investing for Women. That's what I am over there. Anyways, just wanted to share that. So Bernadette, tell me a little bit about yourself. Like, how did you get into this industry? Why are you passionate about it?
So I grew up in a fairly financially unstable environment. And when I I dropped out of college because college was boring.
And now you're a lawyer, okay?
I dropped out of college, I went to work. I worked in financial services for a while, and then I went back to law school. And so while I was in law school, I thought I would do estate planning and helping people plan for retirement because that was my background. And I took a class in law school on estate planning. I thought it was the most boring thing in the world. I was like, I can't do this for the rest of my life. And so when I graduated law school in 2009, we were in the middle of a big recession at the time. If you remember back then, real estate prices were very lowered and we didn't know what was going to go on. And so I actually got into doing bankruptcy work at that time in foreclosure, helping people with foreclosures. And so I found inadvertently through that path is that people need a lot of help with debt and credit and planning for the future. And it's not always just your basic retirement plan that people need. So that's kind of how I got to where I am, helping people out with debt and credit.
I love that. It's true. I mean, retirement is only one event in our life. I mean, it's a big event, but there's a lot of things that you have to go through before you get there and to plan it and everything around just living your life, right? So that's really, really awesome. Okay, so I love this picture of Bernadette. Could you introduce your little elephant to us? And why did you tell me the story about that? Why did you introduce her?
So Bernadette, and if I slow it down, if you're on audio, sometimes people don't get the Bernadette, but Bernadette is the elephant in the room, or now she's the elephant in the Zoom these days with all of the Zooming that's going on. And she was born in 2017 because I kept having people say, I don't know anyone with debt or credit problems, so I don't know how I could ever send someone your way. And what happened was I did some statistics, looked at numbers. 70% of Americans have a debt or credit problem of some sort.
70%.
70%. This was before COVID. So she's been around, she's pre-COVID. And no one talks about it. Everyone thinks they're alone and they don't know how to deal with these debt and credit issues because they think that everyone's going to stigmatize them and think, oh, you're a horrible person because you have a debt or credit problem. So Bernadette was born to kind of make that topic a little bit more cuddly.
She's certainly cuddly.
Right. Well, and it made it easier for people to talk to me. They're like, oh, you see a lot of this. I'm not coming to you with a new problem. And I was like, no, you're not. And your neighbor and their neighbor and their neighbor also have the same problems. And so that's how she kind of came about, was everyone thought that they were alone. And she kind of stands for this idea that we're not alone. A lot of us have debt and credit problems, especially with student loans and things like that. So
Okay, I love that. And she is cute and cuddly. Ladies, you have to go check her out. That's awesome. So a lot of us have made mistakes, right? We have these credit problems. We have debt. We've made big mistakes, right? So how do you set yourself up for success in spite of that?
So there's a lot of talk out there about financial wellness and all these programs to help people stay financially well. The problem with some of the financial wellness that's out there is it doesn't help you recover from things. It helps you prevent it in the future. Mm-hmm. So the best way to be financially well is to never have financial problems. That's not realistic. Mm-hmm. So what people really need to do is when they have a problem, look for help, legitimate help. Find out who you should talk to about a financial problem that you have and know that they're all fixable. Like every financial problem out there is fixable. Something can be done. It may not be stress-free and it may not be completely pain-free, but things are fixable and you'll feel a lot better getting it resolved than you would if you just keep letting it stew out there and you are always worried about it and that kind of thing. So find out what you can do and face it head on instead of letting it sit there.
Yeah, I do find that avoidance is significantly more stressful than dealing with the situation because avoidance can go on forever. It can go on for a year. It can go on till you die. But if you deal with it, it may be a couple of years of pain or, maybe more. Bankruptcy, sometimes it can be 7 years of pain, right? But it's 7 years of an entire 90-year life. Right. So it's finite, but this sort of avoidance thing can be infinite. Wouldn't you say?
It really can. And the avoidance part of it, you don't realize how much it's affecting your relationships and your health. Mm-hmm. I have a lot of clients who come in and we solve their problem either with bankruptcy or through other means. And they call me back like 30 days, 45 days later and say, I had no idea that I hadn't slept in 30 days before I saw you. And now I've slept every night since we've resolved this issue. Right. So you don't really realize what it's doing to the people around you and to your health when it's happening to you. But then when you look back, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I lived with that for so long.
Right. And stress wears you out. You get tired. You don't perform as well. Things tend to go wrong in other parts of your life just because you can't even get to your best. Your best is not its best, right? So that's definitely true. Talk to me a little bit about the scams that people fall for out there.
So finances, because we're so embarrassed by having bad finances, and a lot of times it's because we weren't taught it when we were young or families didn't talk about it because it was kind of a taboo subject. And so you never really talk about it. So what happens is people tend to fall for the late night television commercials that say you have the right to settle your debt for pennies on the dollar and some of the tax default scams out there too. So I see a lot of people who turn to the internet to try to DIY their problems and they end up hiring companies that probably aren't acting in their best interests. And so all that does really is prolongs the pain. And then they have to come see me or something, and we have to fix all of that as well. Whereas if they had stepped in from the very beginning and said, okay, what's the legitimate solution to this? They wouldn't have had to go through that. So the big scams I see a lot are debt settlement. Most debt settlement programs don't tell you all of your options. They just sell you. It's a sales pitch on what they're doing. And then tax, some of the online tax ones that you see where they offer to settle your tax debt for pennies on the dollar. Mm-hmm. I see a lot of those. People pay a lot of money to those companies and then they don't get the results that they were expecting.
Awesome. Okay. And so talk to me a little bit about where they would see results. Like, what is it, Jen, that you do that's different? I mean, obviously you're reputable, but let's talk about what you do.
So my goal is really to educate people. I want people to know what all of their options are and the pros and cons of each one so that they can make good decisions rather than the decision someone's trying to sell them when they're desperate. And so a lot of my discussions with clients, it's almost like therapy, like we're going through and figuring out, okay, what are the pros and cons of this? What's my long-term effect going to be? People don't realize that bankruptcy, you can recover from bankruptcy in a year. Your credit score recovers in a year, but everyone has this misconception that it's like this 7 or 10-year process and you can't get a mortgage. I have clients who are investing in real estate now while they're in bankruptcy because they're able to get mortgage lending while they're in a reorganization plan. So my goal is to educate people to make good decisions. I'm hoping they make the decisions I recommend because that's kind of my superpower is seeing the big picture. But if they don't, at least they know and are educated on those options. So
I love that. So yeah, I was under the understanding that it takes 7 years or whatever. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Right. And so most people who go into bankruptcy, they think their credit score is destroyed. It's going to be destroyed by a bankruptcy. What you don't realize is once you get to the point where bankruptcy is a great option, your credit score is already destroyed. You've already been late on payments. You may have a house that's in foreclosure. Things have already gone on that got you to that point. So filing bankruptcy actually increases most people's credit scores. So if I have a client in the 500s, filing for bankruptcy will immediately improve their credit score. And then they can start rebuilding right away, because the credit score is really just how risky are you to lend money to. And you're way riskier. You're way riskier if you have all this debt hanging over your head than if you were to clean it all up and be in some type of rehabilitation time in your life of financials. So I have clients right now just closed on a house in the South Bay in the San Francisco Bay Area, and they're in a Chapter 13 bankruptcy, reorganizing some taxes, but they were able to still buy a house while they were in bankruptcy. So,
and they got a loan for that?
Yep. FHA lends while you're in Chapter 13 bankruptcy. Yep.
Oh, that's interesting. So it's FHA. I was going to say, because most lenders that I know would not lend on that.
Most conventional lenders would be 4 years after a bankruptcy. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it would be 4 years. That's right. We used to have subprime, but we don't have any of those options anymore. Yeah. Okay. Wow. That's really, really great news. I love that. And it happened in my neighborhood in the South Bay. Like, wow, that's impressive to me.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay.
It's really exciting for me to see. Like, my clients are so happy once all these things start getting resolved. You start seeing the stress melt away from them. So it goes back to the effects that financial stress is having.
Yeah. So much of my message is about having choice, and it's exactly for that reason, not necessarily because you're in debt or whatever, but that's part of the umbrella, right? I want people to live in choice and freedom, not in need or desperation or stress, right? Being blissful means you are not stressful. I mean, you have moments of stress. We all have moments of stress, right? But you don't live in that place. It's not running your entire life and your entire being, right?
Exactly. And having those choices is really what frees people up to be able to do more things with their money and their wealth that they can generate. Because once you know your options and you're making strategic choices and not emotional choices, things start snowballing in a good direction versus a bad direction.
Right. Oh my gosh, I just love that. So one of the things that I talk about when I define bliss is that bliss is this deep sense of joy and contentment, and the feeling that you can handle anything that comes your way. So it's really about emotional mastery, emotional resilience, right? So it's being able to make those decisions outside of stress, outside of emotional reactions, instead to get yourself to a place where you can make rational decisions, get the education that you need, have conversations with professionals that are not based on fear, but based on problem solving, right? So
yes, exactly. That. Yes. And that's exactly what I want for all my clients. I know it's funny to talk about bankruptcy and bliss, but honestly, I want my clients to feel that sense of, okay, I'm making good decisions, and this is a strategic reason why I'm doing these things. So we speak the same language.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that we speak the language of choice, like for you to educate people so that they've got choices. They can go with what you say or not, but at least they're educated. They can make rational choices. That's amazing. Thank you for that. So talk to me about retirement. So the question that you sent me is, when should someone start saving for retirement? And like, for me, I'm like, when you're like 15, right? Like as soon as possible. But what's your response to that?
I would say when you're 6. So
okay, got it.
Really as early as possible. And I know some self-employed people have their children on payroll so they can do Roth IRAs. Really, the idea of compound interest, you don't realize how much is sitting there in retirement. And what I see, so I, of course, see the bad side of things because my clients are often financially stressed. But what I see is people constantly cashing out retirement and then paying down debt and then building up some retirement and cashing it out again. And so I would really like people to think of retirement accounts as something you literally start when you're 6 years old and it just sits there. Whether you have self-directed investments or you have real estate in your IRA or something like that, or you're just mutual funds in the market, just let it sit there and don't touch it. Because I have a lot of clients that are in their 50s, 60s, and 70s that are not able to retire. They think they have $100,000 in their retirement account and that's going to be enough to retire on. And that's not enough to live for a year in the Bay Area even. So it's really scary to see the retirement accounts of different generations that we have going on right now in the country.
Yeah, it's so interesting to me because I've had a lot of people on this show say, well, you could just take money out of your retirement account for that. But that's not the purpose of a retirement account, right? So yes, if we want to self-direct it and put it into an asset that's going to appreciate or give us cash flow, so you do a self-directed IRA like a true one, right? That's okay. But there's so many people that are like, you can take money out of your IRA and pay for that or do this or pay down debt or do that. I'm like,
yeah.
That's exactly what you shouldn't be doing. The retirement account is there for you to force you to save for later because you're going to need it. And if you're so desperate now as a money earner, when you're young, right, you're able to still earn money. If you're so desperate now that you have to pull money out of your future, what are you going to be like then? And you've stolen all those years from yourself of progress towards that future. So really, it's about creating better financial skills, not about robbing your future so that you can have something a little bit more comfortable today. I mean, I really believe in that. And I've never said that on this show because so many people contradict me on that. But it's like, why would you spend your retirement? You need to plan for it. You do. You need to plan for that. There will be a day when you cannot work anymore.
Yes.
Sorry, I just got on my high horse.
No, because I'm happy to hear that because I have so many people come to me and they've been told by a financial advisor to take money out of their retirement to pay debt because they didn't think they had other options. And that's, again, where I come in with the options. But what people don't understand is retirement accounts have a special protection legally too from creditors. So if you cash out retirement funds, creditors can then get to those funds if they get a judgment against you. But if it's sitting in your retirement account, you can have $1 million in retirement accounts and still file for bankruptcy and keep your $1 million because it's protected in a retirement account. So it has a special, like holier than anything almost protection over it by leaving it in that account. So I like to educate on those options too.
Yeah, that was amazing. I didn't know that. I just know that most of us have to be forced to save.
Yes.
It's just one of those things. I mean, you read the book, what is it? The Richest Man in Babylon. He's like, pay yourself 10% first. Who does it? Yeah. But if you have a retirement plan that's that you have just funded automated out of your paycheck, it's automated. You don't think about it. Well, then you're doing it. You don't have to think about it. You don't have to budget for it. You don't have to think about it every single month. Can I afford the 10% this month? Can I, it's not a decision. It's just planning for your life. Right. And people say that it's held captive and that you can't use it when you need it. You will need it. I'm telling you, you will need it and you will use it when you need it more than ever before. And it's a good idea. Right.
Yes. And I often hear from people, well, I can't afford to put any money into retirement. My budget is so tight. And I would challenge people to look closer at their budgets to figure out, because it's not even the full amount you're putting in there. You're saving taxes as well by putting it into a retirement account. So I challenge people when they tell me that they can't put any money into retirement because almost every budget has a little bit of room in it.
Yeah. My husband and I, from the very beginning, from when we were dead broke, we always invested in his 401k. I have a Roth IRA. We always put money in there, maxed it out. He has been at companies over time that matched. So we got a bunch of free money. And I don't admit that very often on the show because it's not a popular thing to say anymore. I do have a self-directed IRA also. And I've got,
I do too.
Yeah. I mean, we've got all of these things as part of the financial plan. It's part of planning for my future. So I don't get it today, but I'm going to get it when I'm 65 or 72 or whenever I decide to pull it out. And I will need it then too. Okay. Right. So, and it has grown during that time. I didn't rob myself for the fun of life. I'm allowing myself to have fun later. Right. And freedom and less stress.
And it will always grow. I think people look at the markets as shaky. And if it's not in a self-directed, if it's in more of a standard portfolio, sometimes people freak out about market dips and things like that. Like you just have to let it ride. Let it keep going.
Don't keep looking at it.
Yeah.
I'm with you. Awesome. That was amazing. So for extra, we're going to be talking about what are the mistakes that you see women making in finances. I love that topic, but what specifically are you going to be focusing on?
So we're going to be focusing on women, generational issues with women, because we're often the caregivers. And so we're often trying to take care of our parents and our kids, and how that money issues come up in those situations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So much like the sandwich generation, right? You've got both sides that you're dealing with, and we still have to protect our own futures. Mm-hmm. So I'm really excited about talking about that. But before we go there, could you tell people how they can get in touch with you, Jen?
Sure. So my website is jenleelaw.com. It's the way it sounds, jenleelaw.com. It's really easy. I reserved it before I even had a law firm.
And it's in the show notes too.
On LinkedIn too. I do a lot of posting on LinkedIn and sharing educational information. So those are usually the two best ways to get in contact with me.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Mm-hmm. So are you ready for our 3 rapid fire questions?
I am ready.
Okay. So Jen, tell us a super tip on getting started investing in real estate.
So my super tip is sit down and write out your budget. Figure out how much you have to put towards investing and find the professionals you need to do that. So that's where I would start. Okay,
perfect. And then what's a strategy on being successful as a real estate investor?
Again, professionals, using the right professionals around you so that you're getting the best deals. You know what all the details are. Don't leave it up to someone else to manage your finances. Know what's all in there yourself.
Okay, perfect. So have professionals, but also keep track of them, like keep your eyeballs on them.
Use their advice, but make sure that you know what's going on and understand it, because I think a lot of people fall into that. Well, I trusted this person to do it, and I didn't know what they were doing.
Got it. Okay. And then what is one daily practice you do, Jen, that contributes to your personal success?
So I sit down in the morning for 30 minutes and plan out my day, like what needs to happen, what can happen if I have time, and that kind of thing. I think we all get stuck in this jump into the day, and it flies away from us. And so that 30 minutes of planning in the morning has really helped me kind of center myself. So
perfect. I love that. This has been amazing. I'm super excited to chat an extra about what the mistakes that we make as women in our finances. So ladies, if you are subscribed to Extra, stay tuned. There's more. And if not, just go to realestateinvestingforwomenextra.com so you can check it out. But thank you so much for all that you've offered in this portion of the show, Jen.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. And thank you for introducing us to Bernadette.
Of course.
I love that. And ladies, if you're leaving us now, thank you for joining Jen and I for this portion of the show. I look forward to seeing you next time. And until then, remember, goals without action are just dreams. So get out there, take action, and create the life your heart deeply desires. I'll see you soon. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed today's show. If you'd like to find out more about how to become a blissful millionaire, go to blissfulinvestor.com. See you next time.